All right. Hey, friends, welcome back to my channel. It's Tori, and today I'm very excited to finally get a chance to talk to the Dr. Fantasy Philip Chase himself, author of the newly minted Edan Trilogy. Congratulations on completing that recently.
Thank you, Tori.
Yeah, Philip, thanks so much for being on the channel.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm most appreciative of your invitation, and I am looking forward to having this chat with you about wherever we go. I guess fantasy, booktube.
We'll probably start there. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, I think it's funny because we've been on booktube in the same kind of sphere for 3.5 years now.
Yeah.
And this is the first one-on-one conversation I think we've had so far. So I'm very excited. I've been building up a bunch of questions for a long time.
Yeah, we've been in a chat before together, but this is our first one-on-one.
Yes, because we did the chat about Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried with Matt, which was, I will remember to go back and put that in the description because that was a really fun conversation. And I think, yeah, that was a good one.
Didn't we also have one about writing with Josh? Weren't you in that one?
Yeah. That was a good one too. That was fun. Josh is a great host.
Yeah, so it was you and me and who was the other? Oh, P.L. Stewart, right?
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah.
And Josh was hosting.
Yeah, I think I remember that one because I thought it was so funny. There was somebody in the comments afterwards who had said, I think this is the most polite live stream I've ever been in. So yeah, I think that was a really fun chat. We went into a lot of topics in that one, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was a very writing focused discussion. But I really enjoyed that one a lot. So.
Yeah. So the first question I have for you is Return to Edan just came out in September.
Yeah.
You finished the trilogy. It must have been kind of a whirlwind, honestly, because you published all in 1 year after working on it for so long. How does it feel to have it all done and out in the world now?
Yeah, I mean, it probably wasn't as much of a whirlwind as people might think because you mentioned I basically had written it over the course of many years.
Yeah.
Well, more than 18 years.
Yeah.
So I had been working on it, not constantly during all those 18 years, mostly in the summers when I wasn't teaching. So I had plenty of time to do that. And most of the preparations in terms of the story itself, just a little bit of polishing, a little bit of, mostly formatting really to get it ready for publication. So that wasn't that crazy. I mean, definitely, it was a learning process for me because things that about because you've done it too. But there are a lot of things that I had to learn about using the various platforms, venues that you can choose from, and formatting, and I had to figure all that stuff out. So not a big deal. So it wasn't that hectic. Mostly just a feeling of kind of relief. But also I feel very fulfilled that there are now people who are reading this story, and it seems to be resonating with some of them.
Yeah.
So that's great. That's all I can ask.
That's the goal, right? Well, and it's got to be, I know from my own experience too, that when writing is such a vulnerable craft, and we have these story ideas and they're just ours for such a long time. And then all of a sudden we're sharing them with a huge group of people that are also starting to, fall in love with these characters and the story that we've had in our heads and on our pages for so long. And that's just, I don't really know that there's words for that kind of a experience. It's an incredibly, like you said, fulfilling kind of journey, I think.
And nerve-wracking too.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the vulnerability part, because for me at least, and I know you've very much more widely read in the genre than I am, you can tell a lot about an author about who they are based on the books that they're writing, because every author puts their soul in their work,
Sure. Yeah.
And so I think that's part of the vulnerability, I think, is, we're giving people a little bit of that window into our vulnerable creativity. And hoping they like it.
Well, I think that's true of any genre, really. Any writer, most writers that I so on my day job is I'm an English professor. Though I'm a medievalist, I do teach survey courses. I teach intro to literature, and you quickly realize that most writers have a very identifiable style, and that most writers also have a set of themes, usually a fairly small set of themes that they really want to explore in their books. So we all have a signature, I guess, in that sense. Just like a composer, when I hear on the radio something by Vivaldi, even if I've never heard it before, I know, oh, that's Vivaldi.
That's Vivaldi.
I'm right 99.9% of the time because I love Vivaldi, and I'm familiar with his style. So that's I think is a thing for sure. And you're right. It is at times nerve-wracking, but the one thing you cannot control is how other people are going to react to your writing. And I think just knowing what's in your sphere of control and what is not is a healthy thing when it comes to publishing.
Yes, that helps.
And accepting, there are going to be people who don't like what I'm doing, and that's okay. There are people who are going to enjoy it. So, that's just part of the deal, because people have different tastes, and even at different points in their lives, their tastes can vary. So there are just all kinds of factors there that are not in your control at all as the writer.
Right. So in your own words, I know we get asked to pitch our books all the time, but how would you describe, because you mentioned each writer kind of has a signature, themes that they really focus on, or a certain style. What in your words would be how you would describe your signature themes and style as a writer?
My signature themes. So I think that it's fair to say, with the backdrop of a holy war, that religion is something that I'm interested in. Yeah. And from the perspective of, I guess, multiple directions, I like to look at, and this is something that comes from my own life. I'm the son of a pastor, the grandson of a pastor, and the great-grandson of a pastor. Wow. And I thought about religion a lot as I was growing up. And I went out in the world and I was exposed to other religions, other faiths, other people. And that influenced the way I felt about the traditions that I grew up in. And I'm fascinated by that journey. And I think to some degree, writing this trilogy has been me working out, okay, well, how do I feel about faith and other things, and hopefully in a way that is nuanced and complex, and acknowledging all the different things, so that's definitely a thing that anyone can see in the Edan Trilogy, even from the first book. A sense of the numinous, the sense of our connection to one another, our connection to other people, to other creatures that we share this world with. That is something that I'm very interested in exploring. And a theme that I get as a medievalist who loves Old English poetry and Old Norse sagas and stuff like that is not only dealing with our mortality, but how do we muster up the courage to do so well? And, how do we face the darkness? How do we, find comfort with one another? How do we find meaning in the face of something as vast as that darkness that seems to be ready to swallow us all the time? And, so that's there. I guess those are the things that I think of right away when you ask the question. There probably are other little things as well. But a lot of it comes from my engagement with medieval literature. Some of it comes from my personal life, just being a human being who wonders, gee, what happens when we die, and that sort of thing. And with it, I hope a sense of humility and spirituality to the whole thing. But there's also a lot of, swords and dragons and stuff in there. And and so hopefully, I'm talking about it like it's some philosophy text, but it is also very much a fantasy where there's war and action and hopefully some tension and that sort of thing. So well, and I feel like I would say it's probably fair to say that
fantasy in large part is a very philosophical genre, because, you know, we often use secondary worlds to explore, like you are, you know, you said you're working through things in your own thoughts, and because the stories we write are ours first before they go out into the world, and it's a safer space to kind of explore a lot of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, psychic distance is
Mm-hmm.
a term sometimes people use to describe that, which I believe fantasy does maybe better. Because I'm biased here, but I think
Same.
fantasy may do that better than any other genre or type of literature.
Yeah.
No accident that we can quibble about what myth and fantasy and the differences, and I know there are differences. I'm quite I study comparative mythology, but I think that there are some key similarities between ancient myths and legends and what we now consider to be fantasy as genre fiction.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of exploring going on in these stories that we keep engaging with, and I think that we need that, actually, as human beings. It's just part of what we are. We are the storytelling creature, as many people have observed, and we need stories. We need stories to make sense of our individual lives, to make sense of our place in the universe, to make sense of our journeys, to help us put patterns on them that we can understand, and that sort of thing. So, and I think fantasy does that beautifully. I really do.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that fantasy oftentimes, I think, outside of the communities we're used to, gets a little bit of side eye sometimes from the general public, which is, hard for us to understand because we're so embedded in it. But for someone that maybe isn't as familiar with the genre or hasn't read a lot of it, what would you say that fantasy has to offer in terms of a genre that can teach us about our own world and who we are as people?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's as you said before, there's the element of psychic distance.
Mm-hmm.
I think fantasy is, and this is not all types of fantasy, because we're talking about, there's a lot of different fantasy nowadays.
Yes.
So there are many different functions, but one of them, and this is particularly maybe applicable to epic fantasy, and this is something I'm getting from these wonderful essays written by Stephen Donaldson, the author of the Thomas Covenant books, Lord Fowl's Bane, and all that. He wrote these nice little essays. They're very short, very readable, about epic fantasy and what it is and what maybe some of its purposes are. And he talked about fantasy as epic fantasy, particularly as the literature of reintegration, which I thought was a wonderful phrase. And what he means by it is, you go on this journey with these characters, and this is a journey of empowerment, often for those characters who are like us, bumbling through this chaotic world that may or may not have any intrinsic meaning to it at all. But that adventure and that sense of accomplishment, that sacred goal that is met, gives those characters a sense of empowerment, and gives the reader a sense of empowerment vicariously as we go along that journey. So there's a real psychological reason for engaging in these kinds of stories, that they give us a sense of empowerment, a sense of belonging, a sense of meaning. And I think we fantasy fans, most of us probably can relate a time when we finished a wonderful book that really moved us deeply, and close that last page, and we look around at the world and think, gosh, I feel like I see a little more clearly right now. I feel like I know my place here, and it's a wonderful feeling. It's that feeling of catharsis, but also that feeling of connection. That can be a really wonderful thing. Fantasy, I believe, is very well equipped, at least certain types of fantasy. Now, I'm quite aware that there are other types of fantasy, like the grim dark, whatever that means nowadays, where I tend to myself see grimdark as more existentialist in nature. I think necessary existentialist literature, being a response to a broad feeling that there is no intrinsic meaning to the universe, but somebody who fights hard enough can create some meaning for themselves, at least in their lives. And I think that's a common feature, at least, of the more, grimdark type books, maybe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, there are all kinds of things that fantasy can do in those terms.
Yeah. I'm trying to remember if was I talking to Crystal Matar maybe? Or no, it might have been John Morrow, actually, about how grimdark is almost more of a tone than a subgenre. And I thought that was an interesting way of looking at it, because there can be that tone of grimdark in a lot of different types of not just fantasy, but literature in general.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, probably if you get 100 fantasy readers in a room and you ask them all, what is grimdark, you'll get 100 valid definitions,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. I kind of want to go and kind of take a step back into the booktube side of things a little bit. Because I think you've been part of this community for a while, and obviously somebody that is what I consider, from my perspective, a pillar of the community. And one of the things that I hear around all the time through the grapevine is how thoughtful and insightful your reviews are. And lots of people absolutely love the way that you do your reviews, and there's such a depth and thoughtfulness to them. So I was wondering what your philosophy on reviewing is, like when you go to review a book, how you structure that. And there's a lot of conversations around reviewer versus author spaces right now and all of that. Which is a kind of an interesting discussion to be part of for you and I, being on both sides of that fence.
Yeah. No, we can talk about that too, if you like, later. But just in terms of how I approach reviews, number one, and I've said this many times, but I don't mind repeating it. Hopefully people don't mind me repeating it. I always try to deliver a review with the thought that the author is sitting in the room with me, because that doesn't mean I'm not critical. I try to be constructive and respectful. So I don't, and I'm not saying you're wrong, anyone out there, if you do rants and that's your thing, and, I'm not judging anyone. That's just how I feel I want to conduct myself. And that is what I find the most fulfilling, that approach. So doing everything that I do, trying to be as respectful as I can. And beyond that, as far as how I maybe structure the reviews, a lot of it just comes from the type of stuff that I would teach in an introduction to literature course. So when when I'm asking my students to write an essay on say a short story, typically I am going to ask them to make a statement about what they feel is a theme of that story, and use that statement as their thesis for the essay. In other words, you're wrapping the whole essay around this concept of the theme of the story. Now, with a novel, often there are multiple themes that you can bring in. So that just complicates it a little bit. But it's still the same principle, where you're exploring theme. And I love doing that. And of course, theme isn't the only thing that you can look at. How about the characters? What kind of characters do we have here? Are they flat characters? Are they round characters? Are they static, or are they dynamic? Do they have any epiphanies in the story? That sort of thing. And often the answer to that will have something to do with the theme once again. So if you're talking about an epiphany, some life-changing revelation that the character has in the midst of the story, that's probably going to lead you back to the theme, or a theme of the story. Then you can talk about setting, or in our case, maybe world building and that sort of thing, And what does a setting offer the story? How does a setting contribute to this theme that we're exploring? How about symbols? You can talk about symbols. How about the title of the story? How about the narrative perspective? How does that add to the experience of the story? Why did the author choose third person omniscient or first person or whatever?
Yeah.
Why? What does that contribute to the theme that we're exploring? So these are all different elements that you just kind of can talk about, and it's not anything super complicated. You know, and for me, that's how I approach a review. Is really the same kind of thing. I want to talk about what makes the story work. What do I think maybe the author was trying to explore?
Yeah.
And how did they go about that? And how effective was that exploration?
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do in a review.
Yeah. Well, and it's so cool because one of the things I love about BookTube and our circle of reviewers that, you know, are posting all these awesome reviews and helping readers find new books. Every time I watch a review, even of a book that I've read multiple times, every person is going to find something different, slightly different that they noticed or found interesting. And that's one of the fun parts, I think, of being in a community of readers, is that it makes you look at even books that you know really well in a completely different light, even if you've read it multiple times, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
I absolutely know what you're talking about. That is actually why my favorite thing to do on this platform is discussions. Really love, and I know it's for whatever reason, the age we're in or whatever, that long form content is not exactly encouraged on YouTube. But there's this whole push for shorts and everything else. And when I'm old, whatever.
I'm right with you, Philip.
Good. You're not old. So
getting older.
Well, we all are, I guess. But no, I really love discussions about books.
Yeah.
And especially with nice people who want to explore books in a way that is respectful and fun. So that's what I live for here. I do enjoy my little reviews, and I like the interactions and the comments and stuff. But I really love the discussions.
Yeah, I do too. Well, and I think it's interesting because in our little corner of BookTube, I think it's been interesting because I've seen I think long form content maybe do a little bit better, because I think as a whole, it seems like a lot of fantasy fans really enjoy those kind of deep dives into their favorite series, or just talking about a certain topic in writing or reading, which is nice to see that there's still a big group of us that appreciate that kind of content. Because it's a very social experience too, where we can all sit down and we talked a little bit about that psychic distance. And I think that that's really powerful in a group as well, because it allows us all to come from our different backgrounds with our different worldviews and perspectives and put us in a group in a secondary world that we can talk about. And there's that psychic distance where we can all have different perspectives on it. And it's a little bit less aggressive or hostile sometimes, which is lovely.
Yeah, I enjoy that. It's almost like going back to my teenage years when I played D&D and we were going on a quest, you know?
Yep. We're all in the quest together.
Yeah. So it's a quest to figure out the book in this case, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And we all bring something, just like the characters in a D&D campaign. We all bring our strengths. We all bring our skills, our experiences, because you have experiences that are different from mine, and you're going to see things in any given story because of your experiences that I'm going to miss. And so that's lovely when I get to learn from your experiences another way to open up this story. That's just the best.
Yeah, it is. And I think I kind of want to segue that into, you know, we brought up maybe talking a little bit about author reviewer spaces, but I do want to ask, because you brought up D&D and I'm deathly curious, what is your staple character that you enjoyed playing?
Oh gosh. So I had two characters that survived. So
okay. Is that a precursor to what I should expect from the Edan Trilogy?
No, not really. No.
Okay, that's good.
Early days. I had a thief named Ethan Dune is what I named him. I was 12 or 13 years old.
Sure.
So don't ask me why I named him that.
That's a solid fantasy name. I'm here for it.
Yep. And then I had a magic wizard named Theodore who survived.
Nice.
So I have no idea why I named him that either, but those were the only two that survived long term. So I have to say they're my favorites
because they stuck around the longest.
Yeah.
So in terms of reviewer and author spaces, I know there's been a lot of discussion on the different platforms about where those boundaries lie, and how each. I don't even like saying each side, because I feel like we're all in a community where we all love the same thing. So to me, saying sides is a weird thing, but different boundaries that authors and reviewers, should be respecting with each other. And I think those are really valid discussions to have.
Sure.
And I'm definitely interested in your take on all of that, and what you see as the important boundaries for that.
Yeah. So for my personal take, I guess, on this, number one, I cannot separate my passion for stories from the other activities in my life that are related to these stories. So for example, my teaching, my writing, my reviewing, my reading all come from the same passion.
Yeah.
And it's a very artificial exercise for me to cut those into parts and segment them and separate them. And some people think that and there are arguments on that side, I suppose, that you shouldn't, mix them at all. I don't know how not to.
Right. It's a little tricky where we're kind of sitting on both sides of that fence.
It is tricky. But that said, no, I have set some rules for myself when I published, since I had been here on this platform as a booktuber, or I don't care what you call me, really. I really don't care. Just somebody who likes to talk about books.
Reading enthusiast.
Yeah, particularly fantasy, because I read a lot of stuff outside of fantasy, obviously, too, for my day job. But I only want to talk about fantasy while I'm here. This is my fun, and I want to talk about fantasy here. So I've done a few videos on Beowulf. I just talked to Tom Shippey about his Beowulf translation, for example. I do some more scholarly stuff occasionally, but really I want to talk about my passion for fantasy. So that said, I have I've been here for a little while, 3.5 years, like you. And I have friendships, and I have networked with people and that sort of thing, if you want to put it that way. And those are very important relationships with me, people that I enjoy talking about stories with.
Yeah.
It's different for them when it comes to my book. And I need to respect that. Okay, these are my friends, but they also have channels where they review books. And if they're going to talk about my book, they're not necessarily bound to say, oh, I just love everything about this book. In fact, that would be kind of crazy to expect. So they're going to have criticism. Some of them aren't even going to like it. People that I like very much are not going to like my books. And that's just the way it is, So I've tried to be open and let people know, first of all, whatever you have to say about my books, fine. That it's I don't want someone to feel like they can't say something just because they know me. So I hope I've made that clear to everybody. And I've also tried to stay out of comments. So when people review on this platform, particularly. So if somebody on, let's say John Morrow does a review in Grimdark Magazine, I'm going to retweet that. I'm going to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But if somebody I know well, or even, don't know or know vaguely on this platform does a review of one of my books, I'm not going to comment on it. That goes for even if it's a really positive review, or if it's sort of in the middle, or if it's negative. I'm just not going to go there, because I don't want to stifle conversation. And I feel like me butting in there could, because I'm in this unique position of having, it's not a honestly big channel, but I guess it's middle-sized channel. Is that, I don't know. I don't know what's big.
I mean, it's big from my perspective, but
yeah, I don't. But I don't want anyone to even have the perception that I would be using that
right.
To try to move the conversation in one way or another. So I'm trying to stay out of reviews on YouTube. What I have a couple times broken that self-imposed rule just to say, and these are positive reviews, just to say thank you for reading my book. I have no other way of getting in touch with you. If I know I can get in touch with you, like I can DM you on Twitter, I'll say thank you that way. Or if I have your email, I'll say thank you there. Otherwise, if I have no other way of contacting someone, I will leave a comment and say, thank you for reviewing my book. I really appreciate hearing your thoughts, and I really do. So, and I want them to know that. And I think there's nothing wrong with me doing that. I hope most people would agree that it's okay for an author to come in and thank someone for reading their book and taking the time to review it. Right.
That's a big deal for us as authors, that people would, because when you and I know how big these TBRs get. There are so many amazing books that we all want to read. Right. So when somebody takes the time to focus on yours, that's a gift.
That's
honestly
a really wonderful thing.
Yeah. So for maybe some authors, writers who are a little bit newer and they're just starting to get their book out there, and there's kind of this, if it's not a 4 or 5-star review, it's scary. So as an author, do ratings or reviews that are not as glowing or positive? How do you as an author handle those? Do you pretty much go hands off? Like what advice would you give to people that are afraid of that?
Well, first piece of advice is never, ever, ever engage with a really negative review. Don't. Just don't. Stay away. People are entitled to their opinions.
Right.
And if they've read your book and don't like it, they're allowed to express that. And you just say, okay, I have no control over that person's experience with my book, and I'm going to have to live with that. You're putting something out in the public.
Right.
And people are going to make their judgments, and some of them are going to express their judgments. So that's fine. I have chosen not to even engage when someone clearly has not read my book and has given me all kinds of unflattering comments. Let's say that's happened a few times. I just choose not to engage with that sort of thing. I have a very, I don't know how many years I have left in my life, but I want to spend them with the more fulfilling things than engaging in a silly sort of dialogue with somebody who's not going to be inclined to say nice things to begin with. So
right.
I just think it's much better for you not to engage with negative reviews. Don't complain. Don't tweet out, oh, look what this meanie did to me here.
Yeah.
Just let it be.
Just let it be.
You're just calling attention to it if you do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, when people give you nice reviews, I think it's nice to say thank you because they took their time to do that. And they may like hearing from you. And most of the time, in my experience, they do. And even talking with you. It's fun to engage with people. It also is important, I think, as a writer, to allow yourself to just bathe in that for a little bit, to affirm yourself. If you're ever feeling down as a writer and you got some bad reviews or something, go back and read your 5-star review that you got. Go and read that, and you'll think to yourself, okay, somebody got it. This spoke to somebody, and that really is what matters. And again, it's about your sphere of influence. You can't, if somebody doesn't like your writing, then you can't do anything about it.
Right.
So
it's outside the sphere of control.
Yeah, exactly. So allow yourself to congratulate yourself. Allow yourself to revel in that positive review once in a while, just to remind yourself that what I'm doing speaks to somebody, you know?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
all you can ask, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the people who are in the middle, you know, who have positive and negative things to say, I think it's really good if you can take it to pay attention to those
For sure.
and see if there are patterns that because I mean, the truth is, a lot of the time, people who give you like a 3 or something on Goodreads, you look at one and they'll criticize this, and this, and then you look at another one and it says exactly the opposite.
Yep.
And you're like, wait, what do I do? Because this one says I don't do this well. The other one says I do it really well, but they don't like this. So you're going to hear a lot of just sort of contradictory criticism as well. And, you know, try to see patterns though. If 90% of those reviews comment on the same thing again and again, then maybe that's something you can work on as a writer to try to improve, to connect better with your readers, because nobody's a perfect writer, right?
Right.
So that's how I try to treat those. I don't know what you do. What do you do, Tori, with reviews?
It's very similar. And I think, honestly, as a reader, I actually do read when I'm thinking about picking up a book. The 3-star reviews are often the first ones I go to. Because oftentimes I think, and this is why I try to tell newer writers not to be afraid of those, especially those middle of the line reviews, because oftentimes those will sell your book faster than anything else, because people know exactly what to expect. Here's what they liked and what they didn't like, and maybe what they didn't like is exactly the type of book I want to read. Like, oh, this is way too military fantasy for me. Sign me up, you know? And so I think it can actually be really helpful. And, you know, when people put the time and effort into thoughtfully critiquing, you know, and having pros and cons of what they enjoyed and didn't enjoy. I think that's really cool that somebody took the time to really go into it that far and give a thoughtful response to it. So yeah, it's not, I think it sounds a lot scarier than it really is.
I mean, and I mean, I'm sure many people say things like you just got to get thick skin and all of that. And I don't know if it's thick skin. It's easier said than done, maybe.
100%.
But I think accepting that positive, neutral, negative reviews, they're all out of your control. It's somebody else saying, this is my experience with this book. And, you know, that's all you can do is try to appreciate when it connects and learn from the constructive stuff that's out there, and try not to focus too much on the really, just because people can be incredibly cruel, often through the anonymity of the internet. So, and that you just kind of filter out and don't think about.
Well, and at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, you know, am I doing this because I love it and I couldn't stop myself even if I tried? And if that's the case, then I think you have to reach a level of, like you said, acceptance and a little bit of confidence in, I love what I do and I'm passionate about the stories I'm telling. And I'm not going to stop. I may, you know, take into consideration things that I'm being told as a writer, which, you know, to grow and to evolve in my quality of writing and the type of stories I'm telling. But knowing when you're a writer, and there's not much you can do about it, you know? So,
I will say that having a YouTube channel was kind of good preparation for the critical reception, as it were, of the books, because I'm used to engaging with people about topics, book related, but also I have, over the years, now the vast majority of the people who comment on my videos are wonderful, nice, and they leave very helpful, kind, generous comments. But I definitely have had a few people over these years who seem to have some kind of strange, hate-filled agenda or other, or some sort or other, and you kind of learn to filter them out. That's it's good to know going in that you are going to have people who are going to be mean, and that's
Yep.
just how it is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We wish the world weren't that way, but there it is. And I'm not going to let that deter me from this passion that I have. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're absolutely right, because, you know, being a content creator is a vulnerable hobby / craft, you know, putting our faces out and our opinions out
Yep.
for anybody in the world to comment on and have an opinion about. It's definitely a good prerequisite almost for putting out a book, because there's a lot of similarities for sure.
Yeah, there really are. Yeah. So yeah, we both figured that out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 3.5 years later. Yeah. So as far as indie and kind of talking about the boundaries between reviewer and author spaces, I know in the indie community especially, and it's starting to really delve, I think, into the traditionally published world as well, there's this kind of accessibility between readers and authors that I know when I was growing up wasn't there as much. You know, you might go to one event that maybe had some authors at it, but it was like, oh, that's what they look like, you know?
Yeah.
As opposed to now with, you know, the explosion of all these social media platforms and discussions and the just access to, you know, people and creators, that barrier, I think, for in large part has been removed, and a lot of authors and readers just have direct access to each other.
At least online.
Online, yeah. And, you know, there's obviously pros and cons to that. And I think sometimes that can make it a little harder to figure out where those boundaries are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just as an example of myself, I'm engaging in discussions on my trilogy with readers right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a series of videos on the trilogy with people who have read and reviewed, and not all of them are giving me 5 stars either.
Yeah.
Some of them are. I don't have any 1-star people coming on, but I definitely do have some people who are slightly more critical, and that's great. I love having those conversations too.
Yeah.
But this is me, the author, inviting readers. Some of them have YouTube channels, some don't. Some are just people who left reviews on Goodreads or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm engaging in a direct conversation. Now, as a reader, I love that.
Yeah.
I love talking to Steven Erikson or Jenny Works or, you know, any author that I love who will talk to me. I want to do that. So my idea was, you know, if there are people who really enjoyed my story or got something from my story, maybe some of them would like to talk with me. And, you know, as this is, for one thing, it's a way of thanking some of these readers. Another is I'm hoping that people will watch it and say, oh, wow, these people got this and this and this out of this story. That's kind of cool. Maybe I'll read it, or maybe they'll gain an appreciation for the story they didn't have before the conversation. So these are discussions I thought, you know, it's a nice way to say thank you. It's helpful for the books, I think. They're probably not going to be, you know, the most watched videos on my channel, but that's okay.
But that sounds like a really fun kind of series to do. I think that's a really awesome idea.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, when I thought this, I thought this could go really well or this could go really bad.
Right. This is awkward silence on a discussion where you're like, right, so.
I mean, I had the first one and it went beautifully.
Awesome.
The 3 guests that I had, 2 of them have YouTube channels, 1 does not currently. And it was just a really wonderful time. And it was fun to talk about people and hear this is what they got out of the story that I worked so many years on. And that's kind of awesome. So I hope it was good for them. And it was definitely wonderful for me. So that's, I don't know, I guess an example of like maybe what you were talking about. So
well, you mentioned mentioning like Steven Erikson and Janny. I think one of the really cool parts about that accessibility being in place more now, when I first read Malazan 10 years ago, I remember just being so blown away by it, and it completely exploded my awareness of what was possible in fantasy. And definitely is like one of my main modern influences on my own approach and philosophy on writing.
Mhm.
And I remember 10 years ago telling my husband, someday I'm going to go to like a convention or something, and I'm going to get a chance to hear Erickson talk about writing.
Sure.
And that's been like a bucket list thing. And now with the community we have and having a YouTube channel, and Erickson very graciously being willing to step into those spaces and have those conversations, that was like, I was getting writing advice from my writing hero on my YouTube channel. And it was just such a wild experience.
Yeah.
And so for you and in all the different conversations and people you've met, I mean, you have some big name blurbs on your book and some amazing authors that have been really supportive of the trilogy. So have you had any of those like kind of not starstruck moments, but like just, wow, it's really amazing that I got a chance to, talk to this person or learn from this person?
Yeah. It's strange.
I'm sure there's a list.
Yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, I've talked to some of my literary heroes. It's true. And they are my literary heroes, people like Stephen Erickson. And I had a chance in a group discussion to talk with John Gwynn and Jenny Wirtz and Mark Lawrence. I talked to on my channel. And he's going to be one of my guests as well, talking about the Edan Trilogy. Yeah, so I'm really, I feel there's a little tiny piece of me that's like a little kid who's starstruck. But you also realize, okay, these are people who are just, they put their trousers on one leg at a time. They're people who've worked very hard at their craft.
Yes.
And that is something that I really enjoy engaging with them about, is just the craft.
Yeah.
And realizing, okay, they're not good because they're just geniuses and they rolled out of bed and just wrote perfect, beautiful stories. They've worked hard at what they do.
Yeah.
So I think in a way, having the opportunity to talk with some of my literary heroes has been inspiring. And in that you realize, well, I can work harder on my craft. I can keep doing this and getting better. I'm sure that many of the writers that we consider to be our heroes have early stories that they don't want anyone to see.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, because you've spent, you said 18 years on roughly?
A little more, really. Yeah.
Okay, so close to 20 years now on the Edan Trilogy.
Yeah.
So was that kind of, were you writing prior to that? Like, how far back does this, Philip is writing books go?
Yeah. So, well, I did have graduate school where I had to write a dissertation and all of that. So I was writing a different sort of book.
Yes.
At that time, I did finish that in 2002. And then I got a job full-time teaching at a college. And I went for a couple of years where I was writing short stories, trying to just get better at writing, and realizing that my long-term dream had always been to write fantasy. I wanted to do that since I was a kid, since I read Tolkien as a 12-year-old or so. I thought to myself, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to do that for people,
Yeah.
And my life path was kind of a result of me being kind of an idiot, thinking that to be a fantasy writer, you had to learn a bunch of archaic languages and that sort of thing. So I did all that. I got a PhD.
Which probably doesn't hurt.
I don't think it's a necessary thing, though.
No.
But yeah, I know that's the route I went, and that it certainly does inform. I think anyone can see, even if you're not an expert on Beowulf, you can probably notice that there's some major Beowulf inspiration in the Edan Trilogy. But yeah, no, I got that job, and then 2 years later, I started writing. But really, mostly in the summers, because just how busy you try to do a good job with your full-time stuff, and that means I couldn't really write during most of the semesters. So,
right.
Yeah.
So writing early on, then we're kind of moving into where did the first spark of the Edan trilogy come from? Like, where did
Oh,
that
okay.
first start?
Well, it is Beowulf, and there is a character in Beowulf with just a throwaway character. The name of a Frankish warrior that Beowulf kills during his career, just a couple lines really in the grand scheme of the poem. And I always thought that is the coolest name. That name deserves a story. And that name is Dayraven. In Old English, it's Dayraven. I thought it would be nicer to translate it into modern English. So yeah, that I knew from the beginning that was going to be the name of my protagonist. That was the first thing I knew. And then, of course, I thought I needed to build a world. This is the way I approached it. So I drew a map and I wrote all this history and this mythology, and there are 4 different religions going on in this continent, and all of this backstory stuff that most readers will never see, or no readers will ever see. I'm the only one who knows about all of these things, but somehow it helped me to feel that this is a lived-in world as I was writing it, and I hope it gives the feeling of depth and helps with the immersion experience for the reader. So yeah, that's how I went about it. And some people would think that's a huge waste of time.
But it translates so well, because one of the things that I noticed right away coming into, and I've read now the first Way of Edan so far, but I got into it and immediately it was very clear, you can see the time you've spent not only in the genre but also in your own world, and it's very, there's such a rich atmosphere of those books where you step into the page and you immediately can tell this is a world of its own that has its own kind of life to it. And those kind of books, I think, are the most immersive, because you believe it so quickly, because you can see the depth to which the author understands and has created their own world, which I think is very special when you find those.
That's the theory anyway.
Yeah.
It probably worked for some readers, and some are like, what are all these dumb songs in here? What can you do?
Yeah. That's well, but I think, we're such a, look at how many like TikTok songs everybody's got stuck in their heads all the time. And it's like, well, this is kind of the like equivalent back in like a more ancient setting.
Maybe.
But also I think it shows, I think, when you include the songs or the stories, that the characters and the cultures value their history. And that's another thing that I think I enjoy reading in a fantasy book often, is when you can tell that the history matters in this world, and to the people that are living in their modern age, that still is a big part of their lives now.
Yeah. No, I think that these kinds of stories within the story, they give you a sense of the history of this place, and even the songs and poems and things. I'm obviously partial to them, but there are also, some of the writers that I love the most have a lot of poetry in their fantasy, including Tolkien and Steven Erikson. And what are they doing with these poems? These aren't just there for decoration.
Right.
They are there because they are often telling the reader, here are the themes we're exploring here. Here's another facet of this theme. For example, in The Way of Edan, exile is an important theme.
Yes.
The main character is going through exile. Some of his friends are going through exile. There are stories of exile all over the place. The bard tells a story of a woman who is in exile. These are just exploring this theme from different facets, and how our personalities, how our identities are wrapped up with our tribe, are wrapped up with our people, and how when you take someone away from that, you rip away a huge part of their identity. You take away their sense of self, which is a kind of death.
Yeah.
Which is why exile is such an important theme in Old English poetry. And
right.
So, all these songs and stories and things, I'm trying, and hopefully it works for some people, to explore what I consider to be the underlying themes in the trilogy, to do with identity and othering, and all the faith or the lack thereof, and stories of the use of religion in beautiful ways and in horrible ways. So yeah, they perform a function. Now, you don't have to like them. Nobody has to like those poems. You can skip the poems and Lord of the Rings if you really must. But I would say if you do that, you are missing what could be valuable experience and something that could give you further insight into what that author is up to.
Yeah. Well, and I think it kind of helps maybe slow us down a little bit too, which I think especially now where we're, hurtling full speed through these these massive TBRs, I always appreciate when a book kind of invites me to slow down a little bit and to just really take some time and kind of sink into that world and maybe go back and read a little paragraph or a bit of the song or the poem again. I know Erickson is a great example. I reread the little bits at the beginning of the chapters that he writes all the time because I want to take that in a little bit more. So I think that they're not done enough in certain types of fantasy, in my opinion. And I think that they definitely can add a lot to the world building and the history and the beauty.
The beauty of the experience. Ursula Le Guin's epigraph to A Wizard of Earthsea. It's a poem. And I feel like if you go back and read that epigraph after you've read that book, it's in a way, in 4 lines, it tells you what the entire story is.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful. I love it. And if you totally ignore that epigraph, you ignore that poem, well, okay, you're not good for you, but I think you're missing something that could be a wonderful part of your experience of that story.
Yeah, for sure. So Dayrhaven is the main character of the story. He's got this wonderful kind of, there's a lot of deep themes kind of all bound up in this coming of age story about Dayrhaven, with his inciting incident pushing him out into the world. Outside of Dayrhaven, which would you say is your favorite character to write?
Ooh, to write.
And I'm making the assumption that Dayrhaven would probably be at the top of the list if he were.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's funny because a lot of people read the first book and they don't necessarily feel that connected to Dayrhaven. He seems like kind of a vanilla kind of farm boy.
I liked him.
World kind of thing. I think more people who have gotten through the second and the third books, some of them have said to me, "Wow, I didn't actually like him that much at first, but by the time I was finished, he was my favorite character," or something like that. So that's wonderful to hear. I don't know. Is he? I'm definitely exploring a lot of the important things through his character and through his art. Is he my favorite one to write? I don't know. I mean, Sequara is definitely one that is deeply important to me, and I feel like I'm exploring just as much through her. And in many ways, I think she's a more. This is only going to make sense if you've read the whole thing, I think, but she's more of a more human hero than Dayrhaven is in some ways. But another character that I really found myself writing was enjoying, maybe that's not the right word, but looking forward to writing his perspectives is Yoruman, the high priest Yoruman, who's not somebody that I consider myself to be like. But there are, as you know, I think there are facets of you in not all, but many of your characters.
Yes.
And I definitely see facets of me in many of my characters, even a bit in Yoruman, perhaps.
Yeah.
And some of his, his whole stance on the matter of mortality, I can feel where he's coming from in a way. I don't like a lot of the things that he does, and I don't like a lot of his attitude, but I can't say that I haven't had periods in my life where I haven't thought in a similar way to him, or even Bledla. Bledla is very sure of himself. He has a lot of certainty about not 100% airtight there, but
Yep.
a lot of to the point where, like with every other holy war that human beings have inflicted on other human beings, to the point where he feels that he's justified in perpetrating violence on people who don't think the way he thinks.
Right.
So.
Well, and that was a question that I had for you, because oftentimes in fantasy you see POVs written from the perspective of what a lot of people would consider the villain, the black, dangerous, evil, quote unquote character.
Right.
And why do you think it's important to have those POVs in the stories? And how did you, because Bloodblood does some things in even the first book that, he's hard to read as a character, because with that certainty comes a lot of, like you said, violence and that hostility and aggression towards these other people.
Right.
As a writer, how do you handle writing it, and also why include it? And I have my own answer to that, but I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on it.
Well, it goes along with what I was talking about earlier. I think the idea that I want to explore religion and faith, and I think that doubt is an important part of faith. I think that if you've never examined your faith, then maybe, maybe great, maybe that's just you, and you have that, and that's a gift, and you're never tortured by doubts or anything.
Right.
But I think doubt can be a valuable thing sometimes to help you explore your faith. And to hide from doubt, to deny that it exists, may not be the healthiest thing. And a lot of times people will respond with a kind of fear that exhibits itself as hatred. When they have doubts, they want that certainty. And so that takes a form of violence. And that's just something that I want to explore with this character who, we've had in human history so many examples of one group of people inflicting suffering and murder on another group of people because they differ in their beliefs. I mean, look at the 30 Years' War, look at the Inquisition, look at the Crusades, you can go on and on and on and give all kinds of different examples from different religions too, not just Christianity. So it's out there. And so it's part of life. And this is the job of literature, isn't it? One of the jobs, anyway, of literature is to explore what people do and why they do it. And I don't think it's our job necessarily as writers to give the answers.
Right.
But it is our job, I think, to offer readers the opportunity to explore these questions. Why do we have this thing called religion, which has inspired so many people to do so many beautiful, wonderful things, to love other people, to build community? And why does the same thing inspire other people to commit murder and hurt other people and assert in the most violent ways their correctness, their righteousness over all others? I feel like it's our job, partly, or it can be if we take it on as writers, to explore stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question for you is, where do we go from here? We have a finished trilogy, and it's getting all sorts of attention, and lots of people are loving it, reading it, talking about it. Do you have thoughts and plans for writing more in the future, whether a different series or something more in the same world?
Funny you should ask that, Tori. So during these 18 plus years that I was writing the trilogy, I also wrote a standalone sequel. So I have a finished draft of that. So I actually wrote 4 books in 18 plus years, not 3. I'm not going to pull a Brandon Sanderson and come out with all these
4 in 1 year.
And stuff, but I do have a standalone sequel, and I would like to edit that and then show it to my wonderful developmental editor, AP Canavan, who has a YouTube channel, A Critical Dragon. He's been fantastic, by the way.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah, just a wonderful pair of eyes to have on your story, I will say. And so I'd like to show it to him and then revise it again and then get it ready to publish in 2024. So
awesome.
That's the goal. That's the nearest term goal. And then we'll see. I would like to continue writing for sure. My dream is to actually be able to put out maybe a book a year or something like that. But that's ambitious.
It is.
If I could retire from my day job and do nothing but this, then I probably could do it. But we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Well, however long it takes in between the books, I'm sure everybody's going to be really excited to see from here where to go. Because 18 years with the Edan Trilogy, you've got a lot of experience under your belt now. So hopefully that is something that, inspires you and that you enjoy to just keep exploring. Because I think you obviously, I was so impressed opening Edan and just seeing. I knew I had expectations going into it because I know, how much you love those ancient texts and Tolkien. And I knew there was an expectation going into it. I was like, I can't wait to see all of those years of passion for the genre kind of accumulated in this story. And I was not disappointed. So
well, thank you. Yeah, I know. I want to thank you for inviting me here again. It's been lovely having this opportunity to chat with you. And I want to wish you much fulfillment and success and joy from your writing. And I know that pretty soon we are going to be having the opportunity to check out your latest. We have a release date now.
We do. November 28th, Bloodstones will be dropping, which is terrifying and exciting and all of the things, as you know.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I wish you so much fulfillment with that. I think
Thank you.
Very exciting. And you have a lot of people around here who are rooting for you. So.
Yeah, which the community makes a huge difference. That's been a huge boost, and very grateful for that. And I want to say thank you so much again for generously coming on and sharing your time and chatting. And like you, this is my favorite part of what we do. I love getting these chance to do these discussions. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you to your viewers as well.
Yes, to everybody watching this, thank you for joining us. Feel free to check out Philip's links in the description box. Go check out Way of Edan, book 1 in the Edan trilogy. And I hope that everyone is having amazing reads and a great week. Bye, everybody.